With this video, I wanted to go over the more difficult problems on section 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. And then on this 8.2, one of these tough ones is actually adding fractions. Adding fractions is a lot more difficult than multiplying fractions. And we're gonna take a peek and show you how to do it. At least my method as far as how to do it. Okay, so we're trying to add these fractions. Now, whenever we add fractions, we have to find a common denominator. And the way I like to do it is I like to split things up into their prime factors. I like to do factor trees. When we're thinking of two things that multiply to give us this 9, we know that a 3 and a 3 gives us this 9. This 5 already is a prime factor, so we'll just think of this like the 5 is just a 5. This 10 splits into 2 and 5. Now, if we were trying to make these things all be the same factors, we'd have to give things to each one of them to make them be it. So if we have two 3's here, this extra thing that this one has is a 5. And to make this 5 be like this, it needs a 3 and a 3, right? And now this 10 has an extra 2 with it. So let's go ahead and give the 2 to each one of these. And so these have the same 4 numbers. Now this one right here needs those extra 3's. And so now it looks like we got similar things on each one of these. We just ended up adding or multiplying these numbers in to each one of them to give us similar numbers. And that's basically what you're doing when you're finding a least common denominator. If we actually did the math on this, 2 times 5 is 10, 3 times 3 is 9, 10 times 9 is 90. That is our least common denominator. And so that's what goes on bottom on each one of these. So we're just going to change these fractions to have a denominator of 90. Now that does change our numerator. We know these are still going to stay negative. Now, really all we have to do is we got to think about what we multiplied to get it to be 90. And I've already circled this for you. We multiplied this by the 5 and the 2, which gives us 10. We did 9 times 10 gives us 90. So we just have to do that with the numerator. 4 times 10 is going to give us 40. 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. We did 5 times 18, gave us this 90. So 2 times 18 is 36. 10 times 9 is 90. So negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Now if we add this together, 40, and we can think about it like it's 40 minus 36. All we're going to be doing is combining these tops. This denominator is still going to be staying the same. But 40 minus 36 is 4, and then 4 minus 9 is a negative 5. And we can't stop there. We have to think, when we get a fraction, we have to think if we can reduce it. And we can divide both of these by 5. We always have to divide these by the same number. 5 divided by 5 is, or negative 5 divided by 5 is a negative 1. And then 90 divided by 5 is 18. So this is your final fraction. Let's do one more fraction. We're going to add these together. Now for adding these together, all it takes is you just trying to make the denominators be the same. That's what we're looking for, common denominator. This one we can think about, if we got a bigger number, we think, can I multiply my smaller number to be that bigger number? And you can just multiply it by 2. So we know that our common denominator is going to be 16. I'm going to write this one a little bit different. Just going to put the 16 on bottom, and then think about what we're doing with these. Now 3 times 2, we got to multiply it by the same amount. Whatever we're doing to the bottom, we have to do the top. That's going to give us 6, and we're adding it to the negative 7. Now 6 plus negative 7, those counteract each other and gives us a negative 1. Think about it like you're adding money together. If you're adding $6 to negative $7, you'd still be in debt just $1. And so our fraction is negative 1 over 16. Your bank statement indicates that you're overdrawn on your checking account by $62. How much must you deposit to bring the checking account balance up to $146? All right, the way I like to think about it is we're at negative $62 is what it said. And we're trying to get our account balance up to this. Apparently we're buying something that cost us $146. Now, on our way up to this, when we're building up to this, we're going to pass up zero. At some point, we're going to add enough money in our account to break back even. To get to that zero, it's going to take us $62 to get there. And now to get from zero up to 146, it's going to take us 146 more dollars. So basically what we're doing is adding these two things together. 6 plus 2 is 8. 4 plus 6 is 10. We're going to carry the 1, and that gives us 208. So we're going to need 208. If we want to think about it in a number sense, basically what we're doing is we're trying to tell the difference between these. And we're starting with $146, or that's our target, is what we want to get to. And the difference between that, we're using subtraction, that and our negative 62 will give us the answer. Now, when we do a double negative like this, when we're minus a negative, one way I like to think about it is imagine that you went to the bank and they said, we made an error with your bank account and we gave you a negative 62 effect on your bank account. And we need to take that away. We made a mistake. We need to take away that negative that we applied to your bank account. What they would really be doing is adding that 62. So that's how we would get to that 208. A missile was fired from a submarine from 230 feet below sea level. If the missile reached a height of 16,300 feet before exploding, what was the change in the altitude of the missile? As we have our little submarine here, and it's going to shoot up to this height, and that's where it's going to explode. And when we say that it's below sea level, we're saying that it is at negative 230. Sea level is considered to be 0. Now to get up to that sea level, we're going to need to add 230 feet. And now to go from sea level up to our altitude that we're aiming for, we're going to need that additional 16,300. And we're telling the difference between this length and this length. And so we're subtracting a negative again, which really means that we are adding positive. That would give us 16,530. All right, find the following difference. Express your answer in simplest form. I'm going to show you something real fast. You're welcome to take a screenshot of it just in case you're not sure what the prime factors are. But all the numbers in red are the prime factors. When you're breaking your numbers apart, also if you look in the order that it's written in, these numbers are represented. This is 4, this one's broken apart as 6, this is broken apart as 8. There's actually, this is 2 times 2 times 2. That's what that 3 in the exponent means. 9 is a 3 and a 3. This just tells you how many of those things there are. And this gives you all the way up to 100. So you're welcome to take a picture of it if you want to. And it would help you kind of break apart numbers when you're doing these, trying to find common denominators. There's also other applications where you'd use this. So looking at our chart, we know that 3 is a prime number. 6 actually breaks into 2 and 3, and then 7 is a prime number. So in order to get these things to all be the same, this needs a 2 and a 7. This one only needs the 7, and this one needs the 2 and the 3. And so basically we're doing 6 times 7, which is 42. And that becomes our denominator on each one of these. With minus in between these. And so we multiplied 3 times, that's 14. So 2 times 14 is 28. We did 6 times 7, and so 1 times 7 is 7. And then 7 times 6 got us to 42, so 1 times that is 6. And so if we did the subtraction, 28 minus 7 is 21, and 21 minus 6 is 15, so this would be 15 over 42. We can divide these both by 3, which would give us 5, and then be 14. When you're doing these, the initial expression is just how the problem would look before you solved it. And so your simplified answer would just be what it would add up to be. So that adds up to be 40. From the sum of 2 and negative 11, subtract the sum of 2 and negative 6. All right, it says from the sum of 2 and negative 11. All right, so we know that these two, this sum means we're going to be adding these. So this is going to be 2 plus negative 11. It says subtract the sum of 2 and negative 6. So this is sum again, so this is going to be 2 and 6 getting added together. So basically what we're going to do is find this, and then we're going to subtract between them. So 2 plus negative 11 is negative 9, and then 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. This is subtracting a negative, so this is going to be adding this 4, and these kind of counteract each other. So we're really doing subtraction between this, and so that gives us a negative 5. We're going to take the value of the bigger number once we combine those. A pilot flew a plane from an altitude of 12,000 feet to an altitude of 10,200 feet. What was the change in altitude? We started out at 12,000 feet and we ended up at 10,200. To go from that height to that height, we're certainly going to be descending down. We're trying to figure out what we're adding to get to this point. One thing we learned in school is how to kind of change these things up. When you're doing this, you can change this into a subtraction problem when this is kind of your mystery number. We don't know what this is. We're going to start at this 10,200, which is our sum, and then we could subtract out one of we call our add-ins. That's just one of the things that add up together to give us our sum. So we're going to subtract this 12,000 from that. Now, if we do that math, that's going to let us know that we got a negative 1,800, which is what we needed to add to get to that. You might be tempted, and you might say that the difference is 1,800, but you need to make sure to put that negative in there. You won't need a lot of help on the multiplication division, I don't think. I'm going to show you how to do one of these problems, and hopefully it'll help you do most all the other ones that you might find difficult on this lesson. And I think this is probably the most difficult one on this. I don't think there's any word problems or anything that's too difficult. So let's do some division with fractions. We're going to take 1/50th and divide it by negative 9 over 80. One thing a lot of schools teach you when you're young is keep, change, flip. What that means is we're going to keep this fraction the same. We're going to take this sign and change it to multiplication, and we're going to flip this fraction. We're going to leave our negative up on top. We'll call it negative 80 over 9. And then we could just straight multiply across. Before we do that, I'm going to tell you that you can reduce fractions, anything that's on top with anything that's on bottom. So I can divide these both by 10. And this gives me a negative 8 there instead, and we have a 5. And then there's nothing else that can reduce with anything that's on top. And so now we can just multiply straight across. So 1 times negative 8 is negative 8, and 5 times 9 is 45. And because we reduced ahead of time, that's going to be our answer.